Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a concept that might feel a little, well, backwards at first. The joy of being wrong.
Yeah, it's a fascinating idea. It comes straight from chapter 3 of Adam Grant's book, Think Again.
Right, the power of knowing what you don't know. And one of you actually pointed us to this chapter.
Exactly. You were asking about this whole argument Grant makes that finding out you've made a mistake uh, can actually be good for you, intellectually stimulating.
Which sounds kind of weird.
It does. So our mission here is to really dig into why that might be true. How can embracing being wrong actually help us learn faster, get a grip on new stuff without feeling, totally snowed under?
Because usually we try so hard to be right, don't we? To avoid messing up.
Absolutely.
So the idea that there's joy in it, okay, I'm intrigued. Let's get into it.
Okay, so Grant kicks off chapter 3 with this really intense story, the Man Gulch Fire, back in 1949. And there's this foreman, Wagner Dodge.
Ah, the smoke jumper story. Yeah.
That's the one. So wildfire's roaring towards them, incredibly dangerous. And Dodge does something completely unexpected, something that saved his life, while, tragically, many others didn't make it.
Because they stuck to the plan.
Pretty much. His story just hammers home how crucial it is to rethink things, even your most basic assumptions, when the stakes are high.
These were trained firefighters, though. They knew what they were doing, supposedly.
Exactly. Their training, the standard procedure was drop the heavy tools, run uphill, try to outrun the flames.
Makes sense on paper.
Right. But Dodge, he looked at how fast that fire was moving and just knew instantly that wasn't going to cut it. And in that split second, he had this radical idea, total rethinking.
The escape route.
Yeah. He lit his own fire right there in the grass ahead of the main fire, burned a patch clear. Then he lay down in the ashes, told the others, get in here.
But they didn't.
They couldn't process it. They were so locked into their training, what they knew should work, that this completely new idea just didn't compute. They ran past him.
Wow. That's chilling. It really shows how expertise itself can sometimes, well, trap you, blind you.
That's a great way to put it. It makes you think about, the less life or death situations we all face.
For sure.
I mean, you're probably not fighting actual wildfires day to day. But think about work, or even just a project at home where your first approach just isn't working.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Dodge's ability to just scrap the plan and invent something new under that pressure. It really highlights how valuable that mental flexibility is for all of us, that willingness to, well, think again.
It really drives home the risk of getting too attached to our first thought, which brings us to those two cycles Grant lays out, right? The rethinking one and the overconfidence one.
Exactly. They're almost like two different paths you can go down mentally. The rethinking cycle, the good one, starts with humility.
Okay. Recognizing you don't know it all.
Precisely. And the humility, it naturally makes you doubt things a bit.
Yeah.
You start questioning your own understanding.
Which isn't always comfortable.
No, but it's productive.
Yeah.
Because that doubt sparks curiosity. You actually want to find out more, look at things differently.
And that leads to
Discovery. You learn something new, and guess what? That discovery often reinforces your humility because you see there's even more you didn't know. It's like this upward spiral of learning.
Okay, I like the sound of that spiral.
Yeah.
That's the goal, right. But then there's the other one, the overconfidence cycle. That sounds less fun.
Yeah, it's definitely less productive. And honestly, it's a trap we can all fall into pretty easily. It kicks off with pride.
Pride in being right.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Pride in your existing beliefs, this strong conviction. And once you have that, you tend to look for validation.
You seek out stuff that agrees with you, confirmation bias.
Exactly. You find things that confirm what you already think, which makes your conviction even stronger, boosts your pride, and round you go.
Building that fortress around your ideas, like you said, only letting the friendly troops in.
You got it. You end up in an echo chamber, basically.
Yeah.
Less and less open to challenge or new information.
So how do you break out?
Grant argues that adopting a scientist mindset is key. That means embracing the humility, the doubt, the curiosity we just talked about. It makes you more intellectually agile.
Unlike the other modes he mentions, the preacher, prosecutor.
Right? The preacher just wants to promote their beliefs. The prosecutor wants to attack opposing views. The politician wants to win approval. In those modes, being wrong is bad. It's losing.
But for the scientist, it's just data.
Pretty much. If the goal is finding the truth or just getting closer to it, then finding out you were wrong is just uncovering a flaw in the experiment, It's progress.
That makes so much sense. And this connects to that Dunning-Kruger thing, doesn't it? Where sometimes the less you know, the more confident you are.
Absolutely. The Dunning-Kruger effect is fascinating. It's this cognitive bias where people with low ability at a task tend to overestimate their ability.
Mm.
Basically, you're too incompetent to even recognize your own incompetence.
Gosh.
Yeah. And Grant gives some great kind of humbling examples of common misconceptions people hold really confidently.
Like the official language of the U.S.
Perfect example. People swear it's English, but nope, there isn't one at the federal level.
Okay, what else?
Well, the Salem witch trials everyone pictures burning at the stake, right? They were
Yeah.
actually hanged. Or Mickey Mouse, Walt Disney's famous creation.
Of course.
Actually first drawn by Works, his chief animator. And seeing the Great Wall of China from space.
I thought you could.
Common myth, not with the naked eye anyway.
Yeah.
Even something like sugar making kids hyperactive that's been largely debunked by research, but parents still swear by it. Did any of those catch you out?
Yeah, the Great Wall one, maybe the Mickey Mouse one too. It's wild how easily we can just be wrong.
Isn't it? And Grant talks about Mount Stupid on the Dunning-Kruger graph. It's that initial peak where you know very little, but your confidence is sky high.
Ignorance is bliss, kinda.
Sort of. It's only when you start actually learning more, gaining competence, that your confidence often takes a dip. You start realizing, whoa, okay, there's a lot I don't know here.
And that dip is actually good.
It's a sign of progress. It's moving off Mount Stupid into the valley of despair, maybe, but on the path towards actual competence. That realization of your own ignorance is crucial.
So feeling a bit unsure, a bit doubtful, that can be a positive sign.
Definitely. That's where the power of doubt and intellectual humility really kicks in. We often see doubt as negative, but it can be so valuable. It puts you in that beginner's mindset.
Makes you question things everyone else just accepts.
Exactly. If you think you know it all, why bother learning? And Grant even talks about imposter syndrome.
Oh boy, that feeling that you're a fraud, gonna be found out any minute.
Yeah, which feels awful, right?
Yeah.
But he suggests it can actually be a motivator. You can knock you off that pedestal of assumed expertise and make you actively seek out feedback, learn from others.
Huh, never thought it that way.
There's a great quote from psychologist Elizabeth Crumray Mancuso. Learning requires the humility to realize one has something to learn. Imposter syndrome, in a weird way, forces that humility on you sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. It might be uncomfortable, but it definitely pushes you to, well, not be an imposter anymore, to actually learn the stuff.
Exactly. And look at Helle Thomasdottir in the Icelandic presidential race. Grant tells this story. She didn't have the same profile as her rivals, maybe felt some doubt,
Okay.
but she used it. She actively sought advice, asked how she could improve, approached it with this real hunger to learn and grow during the campaign itself. It wasn't about being the expert from day one, but having confidence in her ability to learn.
Confidence in your learning ability, not just your current knowledge. That's a key distinction.
It really is. But okay, even if we get all this intellectually, it's still hard to admit we're wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's this resistance.
Good.
Grant calls it the totalitarian ego.
Whoa. Sounds intense, like a tiny dictator in your head.
Pretty much. It's our internal PR agent, basically. Its job is to protect our self-image, our existing beliefs. It filters information, spins things, maybe even suppresses memories that contradict our worldview.
So it's like a subconscious defense mechanism, not just being stubborn on purpose.
A lot of the time, yeah. It's working behind the scenes to keep our sense of self consistent. Grant uses the example of this Harvard student, Lawful, who was convinced technology was ruining society.
Okay.
When studies challenged his view, he reacted really defensively. Years later, his academic work just showed him doubling down on those fears, no sign of rethinking. His totalitarian ego was working overtime to protect that core belief.
Because challenging the belief felt like challenging him.
Exactly. It gets tangled up with our identity. Now, contrast that with Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner.
Okay, how did he react?
When someone found a flaw in his research, apparently he was thrilled. Genuinely happy.
Happy. About being wrong.
Yeah. Because to him, it meant he was now less wrong than before. He'd learned something, gotten closer to the truth. That's the scientist mindset. Again, the goal is understanding, not being right.
Wow. That's aspirational, a totally different way to frame it. But still, admitting it, especially in public, that feels tough.
Oh, it is. Catherine Schultz, who wrote a whole book about being wrong, points out something interesting. We often form beliefs based on pretty flimsy evidence, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
But then it takes an absolute mountain of counter-evidence to get us to actually change our minds. We just cling on.
Like an emotional investment in being right.
You nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing Grant emphasizes. The best forecasters, the people who are actually right most often about the future, they're the ones constantly rethinking.
They change their minds.
All the time. There's that great Jeff Bezos quote. People who are right a lot listen a lot, and they change their mind a lot. If you don't change your mind frequently, you're going to be wrong a lot.
So being willing to be wrong is linked to ultimately being right more often. Huh.
It seems counterintuitive, but yeah. And Grant mentions this strategy from Jean-Pierre Bougam's to fight that tendency to stick to our guns.
What did he do?
When he made a prediction, he'd write down beforehand exactly what would prove him right and what specific things would prove him wrong.
Setting the goalposts in advance.
Exactly. It kept him honest with himself, made it harder to wiggle out or reinterpret things later if the evidence went against him. It's about building in that intellectual honesty.
That's smart. Very practical.
Yeah.
And it seems like sometimes when people do own up to mistakes, the reaction isn't always negative.
Right. Grant tells this amazing story about physicist Andrew Lyne. He announced this huge discovery finding a planet around a neutron star. Big deal, published in Nature.
Wow, okay.
But then, months later, he realized he'd made a mistake. A calculation error. The planet wasn't real.
Oh no, that must have been crushing and professionally embarrassing.
You'd think.
Yeah.
But what he did next was incredible. He went to this major astronomy conference, stood up in front of everyone, his peers, and just admitted it. Laid out the error.
Gutsy, what happened?
He got a standing ovation.
Seriously?
Seriously. People were blown away by his honesty. An astrophysicist there called it the most honorable thing I've ever seen. It just shows admitting error, that intellectual integrity, can actually earn massive respect.
That's powerful. It completely flips the script on fearing being wrong. It shows that vulnerability can be a strength.
Absolutely.
No.
And it brings us right back to that core idea, the joy of being wrong. It's not about like, yay, I messed up.
Right, not celebrating the error itself.
No, it's about the learning that comes from recognizing the error. Grant talks about his own research, how he actually enjoys it when data disproves his hypothesis.
Because it means he learned something unexpected.
Exactly. It wasn't a failure, it was a discovery. It meant he was moving closer to understanding reality, not just confirming what he already thought. He quotes Kahneman again, "Being wrong is the only way I feel sure I've learned anything."
That feeling of, aha, so that's how it really works.
That's the joy. It taps into that fundamental human curiosity, that desire to figure things out.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive on the joy of being wrong, the big takeaway isn't, try to make mistakes.
Definitely not. It's about cultivating a particular mindset, continuous learning, intellectual humility.
Being willing to question yourself, basically. Approaching your own beliefs a bit like a scientist would approach a theory.
Precisely. See them as hypotheses to be tested, not sacred truths to be defended at all costs. It's about reframing being wrong, seeing it not as failure but as a signpost.
A signpost pointing towards a better understanding.
Exactly. An opportunity for growth, a step towards getting things, well, less wrong next time.
So here's a thought for you, our listener, to take away. Think about a time recently when you realized you were mistaken about something, big or small. Did you feel any flicker of that joy of discovery we talked about? Or mostly just annoyance? What did you actually learn from it?
And maybe going forward, how could you actively, maybe even playfully, look for information that challenges what you think you know? Could that actually make your understanding richer?
Something to think about. Thanks for exploring this with us.